Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. My name is Angie Dwyer and I'm your Unit Coordinator for HSP315 Professional Policing in Practice. Welcome, it's great to meet you all. I thought I would introduce you very quickly to the unit and what it's all about. I'm following a PowerPoint slide as I do this recording, and the PowerPoint slide's up already on the Milo site for you. Before we start, I wanted to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on here today. I understand completely that you guys are not here, but this acknowledgement is very important for the work that we do here at UTAS, as well as the work that I do as a researcher. There's a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people overrepresented in policing statistics and criminal justice systems, and a lot of people talk about that now on the scale of a national emergency, considering that there's so many in incarcerated settings and there's so few of them in our populations overall in Australia. So I'd like to think that this is something that we all think about as people that work with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So today we're going to walk through what the unit is about. Which is about, I know this is a really corny little photo, but it's about critical thinking. It's about thinking deeply about a particular instance of that you've experienced in the past, depending on whether it's an incident, a process, a case, whatever, really. So, just a little bit about me. If you need to get in touch with me, email is definitely the best way to do that. I'm more than happy to take phone calls though. I'm pretty sure I've put my mobile phone number up on the Milo site for you. I check my email every day, at least a few times a day, because it is a great source of anxiety for me. But if you don't get through to me in a couple of days, it usually means that I haven't got your email. Please don't send me Hotmail emails or Yahoo emails, because they will not get through to me. I haven't ever received emails from those accounts because our firewall settings are very strict. You can certainly use your police email or use your UTAS student email. Okie dokie. So consultation hours for me, it's pretty obviously you can get me on email anytime, but if you want a face-to-face or a phone, it's always a good idea to email me first and we can tee something up, so to speak. My office is in the Social Sciences building on Sandy Bay campus, and I'm in room 534. Just a little bit about my research interests. I do research around LGBTI people and policing and young people and policing. So really looking at and focused on the experiences of vulnerable communities in relation to police officers. At the moment, I'm working on a project around young people with intellectual disabilities and their experiences of policing. So that just gives you a little bit of background about me. I also enjoy doing in my spare time, I absolutely love dirt bike riding. I absolutely adore punk music. I swim, I run, I hang out with my family doing bushwalking, and I do research, which I absolutely love. It's by far my favourite part of my job. So that gives you a bit about me. If you want to know more about me, Google me. It's all there. So this is a unit about intensive reflective practice, but it's also critically reflective practice. And that's something I'll talk about in the other video that I'm about to record and upload for you. The core focus is basically about having you... Sorry, I got a frog today. Just overcoming the frog. Is thinking about your practice as a police officer since you did your recruit training, basically. Something that created a little bit of a challenge or a bit of difficulty for you, and thinking through that something, be it a process, an incident, or anything like that. So most importantly, it's about considering that particular moment and then, how you're going to improve on your practice into the future. And of course, it's about doing an oral presentation in that respect instead of another essay. So let's talk about this assignment then and what this all means, because it's fairly straightforward. I've got a whole bunch of set readings on the Milo site for you, and you just need to read these and then apply this to this reflective task. That's what I've called it. So you need to think reflectively about your practice as an officer of Tasmania Police and record this reflective thinking process and how you might improve your policing practice in future. And you record this as an audio recorded oral presentation using PowerPoint. Now, this can be difficult, and I will talk through this a little bit more later on. It's due at the end of week 11. I think the precise due date, if you click on assessment resources, it will be up the top of the page there for you. The weighting is 100% of the unit. There's nothing else for you to do except for this particular assignment. And we'll talk about how to upload it in a moment, because that in itself is a fabulous landmine of activities. So this is the way that I kind of get the students to do this. Number one, read your set readings, which are all up there for you. I've given you some additional readings just in case you want more to read. Usually we can tell when people read more because they get higher marks, they write in a more informed manner, they reflect in a more informed manner, okay? You need to think reflectively or critically about a particular encounter, or process that you've experienced, or perhaps the difficult incidents that you've attended as an operational police officer. This can include operational and supervisory situations. It can include anything, in fact. What made this encounter, process, or incident difficult for you? So, people have talked about cases where it's child sexual abuse. People have talked about cases where they're managing fires, knowing full well that their family is also at risk at the same time in those fires, and they've got to focus on managing the fires. People have talked about how a particular process might be difficult or challenging because they're kind of the head of that process and they can't provide feedback on that process to people. So the way you think about this can be very, very broad. And if you're worried about whether or not something fits, just send me an email. I'm happy to help tell you whether or not you're going in the right direction, so to speak. The most important part of this process is thinking reflectively or critically about how you might improve your future policing practice around encounters, processes, incidents like this. So find and read some literature around the specific incident. So in number 2, you're thinking critically, reflectively about a particular incident. You've got to figure out what that incident is, but you've also got to go and you read those readings online, and so you know that you're thinking critically, right? Now we're going to move down a bit further into the deeper reflection, where you need to go and read some of the latest research around that specific incident. So if it's a shooting, then what's the latest research say on how police officers best deal with shooting? What's the best practice stuff out there? That's what you're doing in number 3. This is the part that everyone forgets. So that's really important. If you nail number 1, number 2, number 4, you're probably going to get a credit or a distinction somewhere around there. But if you nail number 3 and you've got that element in there, then it's probably going to be a high distinction, if that makes sense. It takes your reflection up to that really deeper level of work. Then you create a set of PowerPoint slides, no more than 10, about the specific case, about the encounter, process, incident, what made it so difficult or challenging, and how you're going to improve your police practice around situations like that in future. All right, so it's fairly straightforward. So the hard parts are probably the next bit, where you've actually got to record it using PowerPoint. So this can be a little bit difficult. Your recording should be between 7 and 10 minutes. Sometimes people will go well over this and we get half an hour recordings. You need to make sure you try and keep it within 5 minutes over. That's okay. But if it's any longer than that, we're going to have to mark you down a bit for it. And once you've audio recorded your voice presenting that particular presentation that you've put together, then you need to upload your PowerPoint. Now this is going to be a bit difficult. It's more submit your PowerPoint, because we have a whole bunch of different ways that we can submit it. We can't upload it to Milo because you'll be talking about cases and stuff which are confidential, and turn it in, the process we use to upload to Milo it makes it a public document, and I can't mark it online. So yeah, there's a little bit of an ordeal. I'll talk about that more in a moment. I'm pretty sure I've got a section on how to email it to me and all of that sort of biz. Sorry, folks, I'm just making a note about something as I'm doing this. Okie dokie. So the best way to submit it, realistically, is to me via email, but I'll talk through that in a minute. What are we talking about when we talk about difficult? I really wanted to give you some advice about this because some people struggle with it a little. So how was this difficult or challenging? Critically reflective thinking is thinking about any of these things. Was your training or knowledge sufficient? Were your communication skills insufficient? Did the interaction go badly for some reason? Did the person in crisis perhaps not respond to the way that you did things? Was a particular process wrong, or did it go wrong for you? Did you get the incorrect information from another officer? Was it just too complex? All of these things are things that you could think about. Legislation being inappropriate, the emotional toll, the investigative difficulties with the case. Were there logistical difficulties as well that came about? Simply because there was not enough police officers available to attend the incidents. All of these things can make something difficult. So that's what we mean by difficult or challenging in this unit, all right? But there are other ways that this unit can be really challenging as well, and that's technology. So because Milo makes it a public document, we have to find other ways of sending in what is often a very big file. So if you've got your PowerPoint slide and you're recording your audio and you're attaching it to the PowerPoint, it will make the PowerPoint a very large slide. Now, what happens is, imagine you've got, your slide there like that, right? You've got your audio file, right? So you've got to embed your audio file onto the PowerPoint slide. I know this is a total dodge way of showing it, but that's just, it's just the way that I work. So you've got to embed it into the PowerPoint slides, right? Sometimes that doesn't work. What happens is that when you do it, the PowerPoint slide's over here, but your audio is over here on your desktop. So when you listen to the PowerPoint, you can hear the recording because it's accessing the recording over here on your desktop. But when you send it to me, the audio recording is gone and I just get the PowerPoint. So you've got to check before you send it that this is attached to the PowerPoint and then it can send to me. But of course, that makes it a larger file and then makes it more difficult for us to send, which I'll talk about more in a moment. So I've put some instructions up online about troubleshooting that process and how you can do that quite easily. There's quite a bit of stuff. I've stepped you through there on this particular slide. It's called "This Unit Can Be Challenging Technologically." I've stepped you through the process of what you can do, when to ring the service desk, all of those types of things. And I've also put a whole bunch of a few blog links and stuff about how to send stuff if something is, too big for an email and all of that sort of stuff. You can use things like OneDrive. You can also use Cloud Store, I believe it's available. There's also Dropbox, which is available. There's a whole bunch of different ways that we can do this electronically, right? But sometimes we've just got to go back to good old-fashioned snail mail because all of that doesn't work. I have had people send me PowerPoints, CDs with their assignment files on it, all sorts of different things to try and get this to me. I've had them come in the mail, I've had them dropped in my pigeonhole, I've picked them up down on a boat, down at the dock, you name it, I've done it. I will give you one heads up tip about sending me a USB. So again, if I could demonstrate using, just give me 5 seconds. Okay, so if you've got something like this is your envelope, right? And you've got your PowerPoint slide, your USB, you pop it into the envelope like that. Now, when it goes in through the mail sorter down at Mornington, it makes your USB come out. It just goes straight out the mail sorter, and I get the empty envelope. So what you actually need to do is maybe, take the USB, wrap it up a gazillion times inside something else, inside the envelope, or put it into some sort of, post pack. I know it sounds absolutely ludicrous, but that's the way that I get it. And I have actually spent time sitting over at the mail sorting office at Mornington going through 1,001 USBs. So that gets that part out of the way. Technologically challenging, yes, we've ticked that box with this unit. This is also a personally challenging unit because, some of the stuff I mentioned before can be a bit yuck to deal with. Things like really difficult cases that took an emotional toll on you in particular. Please don't be silent if this stuff is troubling for you. You don't have to tell me all about it. You've got police counselling, which is available, they're wonderful people and they do a fantastic job. You can ring, a whole bunch of different domestic violence counselling services. And of course, because you're a UTAS student, you can access free counselling here at UTAS as well if you don't feel comfortable going to the police counsellor. But there is so much assistance around you, so please draw on that. Don't let this unit get to you if the unit has actually raised issues for you in one way or another. Okay, so how do we do critical thinking? I'm going to tell you more about that in another lecture, but one of the things that I found really useful in Copley, this is a whole book dedicated to critical reflection. I think it's called Critical Reflection or Reflective Thinking for Police Officers or something like that. It's one of the main things that I give you to read. They talk about a useful strategy for this, which of course is concept mapping. I'm sure you've all come across it before. You may not have, I don't know. But there's a picture of one on this slide that I've called How Do I Do Critical Thinking? There it is there. All right, so I've actually uploaded a 2-page reading that describes the process of concept mapping for you. It's absolutely brilliant, the best summary I've ever seen of this type of stuff. If you read that, it will give you a really good understanding of how to do the process of critical thinking in a more concrete way, where you're writing down on a piece of paper, you're thinking through various levels of the task, all of that sort of stuff. So make sure you have a read of that because it's really useful. And then have a listen to the short lecture that I put up about what critical reflective thinking is, so you actually know what you're doing, because it can be really useful. So, some final tips. You can focus on anything, any encounter, process or incident that you've been involved in that was particularly difficult. It could well be the first job that you ever did. It could well have been the job you did yesterday, whatever. Chances are it will stick in your mind. Give yourself this opportunity to think through those difficult ones, because this is probably the only opportunity you'll get to do that. Don't focus on how many slides that you're trying to write. Think about the balance overall. You need a title slide. You need a few slides outlining the situation and what made it difficult for you. A few slides outlining your critical reflection. What did you learn and what could you do differently next time, including that research literature about the specific process or incident. All right, very important. I keep saying that because everyone forgets. I have very few people that make it to that level. And of course, make sure you include some references not only to the critical thinking literature, but also that broader research literature about the specific incident, process or encounter that you're talking about. This is a presentation as well, so just remember that we're also grading you on your presentation skills, but that's not a huge focus. Check the criteria sheet because it will actually give you information on what that looks like, and I've already uploaded that for you. Having said that, we're probably going to make a few adjustments to it in the next, probably by the end of week 4, I'd say. So practice your presentation before you record. This is pretty important. Pretend you're presenting to a group of your fellow officers, have a little bit of a practice. It might be useful to have your slides here, but to write a script next to you so you know the points that you're making. When we write presentations in particular, you'll often find that the points that you write down on the paper doesn't come out the way that it's supposed to. They don't come out the way they're supposed to, right? So you have to read through them a couple of times to get them logical and rational and all of those sorts of things, and they unfold quite nicely. What I do is, as you can tell, I print out my slides when I'm doing a presentation. I keep a pencil or a pen handy, and I make notes on my slides as I go, so I know what to include, what not to include. This bit's too long, I need to cut, all of that sort of stuff as you're presenting. Then record your final thing. Put some pictures in, but consider the ethical issues around pictures of dead bodies and so forth, folks. Let's not go there. References are really good, but think carefully about what references. Make sure you include some. These can be on critical reflection, but you also need stuff associated with your particular encounter, process, incident, case, whatever, basically. So I've said here, if the encounter was difficult because the investigative interview didn't go well, then you need to find some literature on what the best practice says about investigative interviewing, and then incorporate that into what you're doing, all right? And making sure that, you've got your name and your date of that literature up on your slides so the person can see that you're referencing it. This shows the person it shows us that you're doing that deep level critical thinking, critically reflective thinking. Wow, say that after a few vodkas, peeps. It demonstrates that you're thinking about it at a very deep level, which is what we're looking for in the criteria. Okie dokie. Remember your learning outcomes, reflect critically, I'll get it eventually, on difficult elements of police practice using research, identify and analyse the social, cultural and historical context of difficult police practice. This could be things like the person was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, the person was having a mental health crisis at the time, the person is Muslim, comes from a particular, that specific cultural background, and that was an issue. There's so many things that could be social, cultural, historical issues which are emerging in that context. Even having an interaction with an Aboriginal person, the history is really important in those types of situations. So that's what I mean by thinking about those broader contexts. And of course, how you communicate that stuff in a narrated PowerPoint presentation. That's it, folks. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that gives you a sense of what you've got to do in this unit and, of course, what you've got to do with the assignment. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. I'm a really nice person and I won't bite. And I look forward to chatting with you all over email at some point, if not face-to-face, in this semester. Have a great week, and I'll chat to you soon. See you later.